Hello to all of the lovely people tuning in today. Welcome to Fractured Poet, a podcast for all of you poetically insane individuals who love getting lost in the art of poetry. Podcasting from Ontario, California, I am your host, Katrina Wisniewski, just another person in the world obsessed with words, striving to make sense of it all. Today's episode is all about being poetically insane, so my intro goes. As I have mentioned many times before, I absolutely love writing poems about poetry. It's fun to mess with and write about. I enjoy, most of the time, getting lost in the process of writing poetry. Yes, it can be extremely irritating at some time or another, but honestly, it's an addiction of mine. Writing poetry is freaking awesome, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. So without further delay, here is a poem I like to call In My Head. These words in my head are endless. It's driving me crazy. I crave to have a moment to myself, a moment with no words being uttered, a moment of pure sanity. The curse of a poet. Words. Are they friend or foe? This poem is one of those on the fly type poems. As the poem mentions, the words that circle in my head are endless. I am always having certain words or phrases zoom past me, and I have to get them out. I can be in the middle of doing something, and all of a sudden, a phrase pops up. I have to stop what I'm doing and write it down so I don't forget. And then I will come back to it later and figure out the rest. I actually came up with this poem on Facebook. I wanted to create a story and I didn't know what to do the story on. So I went to the text category and that's when the poem was written. Weird, huh? But yeah, that's me on the fly. But in my head describes how I function when I tackle poetry. My mind is always running wild, and there are millions of words in the world that I can use. It's just figuring out which words to use and how to use them. The next poem is a little shorter, but this one is called Poetic Plots. When the music plays, her words become a maze. A poet who has lost her way and no longer put on display. Poetically insane she is not, a story with no plot. There were a couple of things that contributed to this poem in terms of how I came up with it and my thought process leading up to the poem itself. It was one of those moments for me when I had the urge to write a poem, but didn't necessarily know what to write or what to write about. I remember listening to music, trying to get into my poetry zen, and this came up. It wasn't what I originally thought I would be writing, but this apparently was the end result. And when I'm listening to music, I can be sitting or laying in bed in the dark, having no intentions whatsoever of writing a poem, and the lyrics in a song can trigger an entire poem without a drop of thought. It just literally comes out free flowing. So that's what my overall goal was at the time, and I didn't go in the direction I thought I would, and I ended up writing about a poet that has no idea what to fucking write. And in the end, writing a poem that had no plot, no sense, just words. Yeah, strange, I know. It's how I roll, it's how I do things, but yeah. So technically, I was supposed to end the episode with the last poem that I wrote, but looking at how long I've been going on with this episode, probably like 4.5 minutes, that is way too short. So, on a limb, I added 2 poems to the episode. So, kind of bear with me because I haven't written anything out up to this point. So, just bear with me. So, this poem is called Intoxicated Lullaby. You are a melody I cannot mute. To take a sip is such an intoxicating delight. Infatuated by the thought of you, I am completely undone. You are a lullaby I will always remember, a sweet serenade so hypnotizing. Paralyzed by your presence, I am trapped in an irresistible state of mind. Your existence is overwhelming, falling head over heels. I am yours. Okay, so I apologize again with the impromptu poems added on. It doesn't really go with the theme of this episode, but like I said, I was looking at how long I was at that point, and it was like 4.5 minutes, and that's just too short. So I added on more poems. So with this one, I'm not really sure what I was writing about. It could have been I was listening to a song, and it was one of many of my favorite songs. And like the poem is titled Intoxicated Lullaby, it's just, something I can't mute. It's a melody that I can't forget. Or I could have been writing about my fiance. Hi, Andrew. So I could have been writing about him, and this is just what he does to me. It's how he makes me feel, all that lovey-dovey crap. But so there's that one. I can't really elaborate on anything else because, like I said, I haven't had time to write out anything to really think about it. So this was a last minute add-on. So I'll go on with the next poem, and this one is called Yesterday is Gone. With so many words left unsaid, I wonder if you're even worth the effort. Often pondering why you meant anything to me at all. Such a naive little girl I was, to believe our bond would last forever. Ashamed of the memories we created, suddenly questioning your loyalty and sincerity. Developing such a hate for you that runs deep, a hate that will always burn brightly. I see you now as a waste of space, an empty soul. To erase you from my life will be challenging. To forget what you've done is impossible. Again, it goes off the theme initially, but this one, I won't get too much into detail because it's a little personal, but there was a time in my life where I started questioning certain people, and I started reevaluating my life in terms of if I wanted these people to still be included in my life. Sitting here questioning things, if anything that happened was genuine and sincere, if I ever meant anything to them at all, or they ever meant anything to me at all, I don't know. But that's kind of where all of that came from. It's kind of I don't know, just like I said, another venting session, I guess you can say. But with that, again, I apologize if this is completely off kilter with the last part of this episode. I totally apologize. This was literally not planned if you couldn't tell. So, with that being said, that will conclude today's show. So, to those of you who are always tuning in, and to those that are just tuning in, especially in this episode, I hope you liked what you heard and you tune in next time. Hopefully, I didn't bore anyone, but you can catch this episode and future episodes at anchor.fm/fractured poet. This episode of Fractured Poet was written and produced by me, Katrina Wisniewski. Music by Alternative Rock Volume 1 and Rock Electronica Volume 4 on a website called freeplaymusic.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at Fractured Poet. And as always, thanks for listening, and until next time.